Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on the channel. So the League One season is now fast approaching us, and that got me thinking to go back to an old video of mine that did really well in the past. As you can tell by the title, we are going to be looking at the Bookies predictions for the 2023-24 season. We're going to be taking a look at Sky Bet's odds for the teams to win the league this season, and that has accumulated a league table, and we will be going through that today. Before this video kickstarts, please bear in mind that the odds will be subject to change. They have changed quite significantly from last week to this week. Without any further hesitation, let's get straight into this video. So as ever with these videos, we will go from the bottom and work our way up. Coming in 24th place at 66-1 odds to win the league, we have newly promoted Northampton Town. Historically, we have seen the League Two teams tend to do really well at this level. They tend to keep the confidence of the side that got them promoted, and they end up doing really well. In the case of Northampton, it doesn't really surprise me they're this low down, because historically they have struggled to stick it at this level. You know, they come up from League Two and they either go down at the first time of asking, or they suffer second season syndrome. Their manager John Brady has done really well with them over the past couple of seasons. They've only signed 2 players so far. Patrick Bruh, I think they say his name, coming over from Barrow, who to be fair looks a decent option. I think he did really well at Barrow last season. Seems to be a fullback that likes to get forward and create chances. He averaged 1 key pass per 90 last season and got 3 assists, I think it was. And they've also re-signed Kieran Bowie on loan from Fulham, who did fairly well. 5 goals, 3 assists at League Two level. Sam Hoskins is obviously the standout player for them. 22 goals and 7 assists at League Two level last season. Fantastic player, and he's certainly going to be one to look out for and one for them to keep. So they have got some decent players. I would expect Northampton to be quite low down this season of fighting relegation, considering what they have done in the past, and probably their squad could definitely do with some improving. Coming in on the same odds as Northampton Town at 66-1 odds in 23rd, we have Cheltenham Town. But I do have my concerns with Cheltenham going into this season, particularly, you know what I'm going to say, the loss of Alfie May. We've seen in the past with many League One sides, when they lose key personnel, particularly their leading marksman, they tend to struggle. And in this case, I mean, just going off the statistics, Cheltenham scored 45 goals at League One level last season. Alfie May scored 20 of them, and they were all from open play. So that is, I mean, it just shows the scale of, you know, how big of a loss May is for them this season. Of course, has gone to my club, Charlton. Their transfer signings have been fairly interesting, let's be honest. Curtis Davis is a pretty decent addition. Obviously brings an abundance of experience to their defensive line, and something that they do need to tighten up. They conceded 61 goals last season. Rob Street could be a decent signing. You know, comes in as a young option, did fairly well at Shrewsbury. Luke Southwood coming in between the sticks is a great signing, in my opinion. 16 clean sheets for them last season. There seems to be a big hype surrounding Aidan Keener at the moment, their striker. 6 goals and 3 assists in 19 appearances. It is quite a drop for them with the bookies to put them to go down and in 23rd, but if I'm being honest with you, we've seen in the past our teams have struggled to replace big players, and in this case with Alfie May going, it is a huge loss in their side, and I do have concerns as to whether they're going to be able to replace the amount of goals that he scored. One team that I am quite surprised to see this low down, though, is Burton Albion, who the bookies have on the same odds as Cheltenham and Northampton in 22nd, which, if I'm being straight up with you, I think Burton are capable of a lot more, and I think that they can really push on and improve upon their position last season. They are quite a frustrating team to watch, though. You know, they tend to really struggle in the first half of the season. I mean, last season they looked dead and buried, you know, looked really dead in the relegation battle, but they used the January transfer window to their advantage. They brought in players. Dino Memory has done a fantastic job, and he pushed them up into the mid-table positions. And dare I say it, they've had one of the best transfer windows in the league so far. After Victor Adboyejo left last season, they really struggled to have a recognised scorer, and I think they've got that now with Stockton and Gordon. Stockton, yes, he wasn't as good last season as he was the year before, but he still knows where the back of the net is, and for a side like Burton, it's an excellent addition. And Josh Gordon as well, come off the back of a great season with Barrow, 16 goals I think it was. Mason Bennett as well, I think, is a decent pick. I obviously didn't stick it with Millwall in the Championship, had a bit of inconsistency, but I think for Burton, it's a fresh start for him, and I think he could prove to be a solid player at League One level. Some other players they've signed, Jamal Blackman, taken gambles, in my opinion, with Raheem Harper and Kegs Chalke, who I think are still a bit unproven at this level, particularly Harper, who's had a disastrous time at Ipswich and also on loan at Exeter. They do need to tighten up their defence going into this season. They had the second worst defence in the league last year with 79 goals conceded, and they have lost, at the time of recording, Deji Oshilaja, who of course has left the club upon the expiration of his contract. I don't know whether they're going to still deal to get him involved and get him re-signed, but it is a big loss in the defensive line for them. 6 goals and 4 assists, I think it was. They do need to strengthen their defence, but I think if they can do that, and if they can match the signings they have done so far, they are capable of a lot more. And completing the bottom 4 in 21st is another newly promoted side, that being Stevenage. And again, like Burton, I think they're capable of a lot more, and I think they have had one of the best transfer windows so far in the league. Of course, under the guidance of Steve Evans. Whether you like him or hate him, he knows this league around the back of his hand. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows what he wants from his side. And the transfers they have made so far, they've brought in a lot of League One experience. Nick Freeman coming over from Wycombe, Louis Thompson coming over from Portsmouth, Ben Thompson from Peterborough, I think is a good signing. And of course, they add to the likes of Jake Falsterkaski, who again has been pretty decent at this level in the past with Charlton Athletic. They've also lost Luke Norris, who was one of their leading marksmen last season with 14 goals. However, they have still got Jamie Reid and Jordan Roberts, who were one of the other more prolific players. Reid obviously got 14 goals, the same as Norris. Jordan Roberts got 11 goals and 3 assists from out wide. Carl Pergiani, very dominant centre-back in the air, 7 goals from centre-back last season. And they've also tied down contracts to key players like Luther James Wilding and Terence Van Kooten. So I think they're building a pretty decent squad at Stevenage, and I think at the moment I would put them well clear of relegation. Coming in 20th place, we then have Shrewsbury Town. Now, it is quite the drop from last season because obviously they finished mid-table and quite comfortably, and maybe well could have finished a lot higher if it wasn't for inconsistency towards the end of the season. You know, Shrewsbury have been that team that I've always predicted to finish mid-table because their recruitment has been brilliant. But this season could be the year where it all completely crashes down. I mean, first and foremost, losing Steve Cottrell and what he'd done and the position that he led them into was obviously fantastic. They've replaced him with Matt Taylor, who is still very unproven as a manager. He had a pretty dismal time at Walsall. It's definitely an underwhelming appointment compared to what they had with Cottrell. Their team at the moment does look thin-boned in certain areas, particularly the midfield and the attack. I mean, their leading marksman, who you probably would say would be Daniel Urdo, has been out of an ACL injury for most of the season, so they do need a marksman to go up front. They had Christian Sadie on loan, but of course he's gone back to Bournemouth and has recently signed for Portsmouth. They do have some decent players in their books still. Marco Morosi, solid League One keeper. Che Dunkley, I knew he'd do well for Shrewsbury last season, and he really was a decent figure in the defensive line. Tom Bayliss and Jordan Shipley in the middle of the park. Carl Winchester, who they signed recently from Sunderland, offers some experience as well, but I think it's that lack of a goal scorer and also a lack of a leader, with Luke Leahy leaving as well, submitting a transfer request as well. I think the club is undergoing a bit of a turmoil at the moment with the ownership and a bit of financial problems, and Luke Leahy jumping ship and heading to Wycombe, the club captain. You do have to kind of wonder who else is going to be next, who else is going to jump ship in that situation. So Shrewsbury, they have still got some decent players. I just think with the managerial switch and the current situation ongoing with the club, it could be a dismal season. One prediction that I think is a bit off, though, is Lincoln City, who they've got in 19th, which again is a massive drop from 11th down to 19th at 50-1 odds. They were the draw specialists last season with 20 draws and were the only team in the league to finish with a 0 goal difference. Mark Kennedy did a fantastic job last season. Regan Paul leaving for Portsmouth, obviously leaving on a free upon the expiration of his contract, is a massive loss. Brilliant figure in the defensive line for them. Carl Rushworth is gone, had a decent season in between the sticks, but they have replaced him with Lucas Jensen, who has obviously had previous experience at this level with Accrington Stanley. Alistair Smith looks like a decent box-to-box midfielder coming over from Sutton. That could be a decent signing. Rico Hackett-Fairchild, I think, is certainly a gamble. His statistics have not been that great at Portsmouth, but he could still offer something, in my opinion. Jaden Brown coming over from Sheffield Wednesday as well. Obviously just got promoted to the Championship with them. Other players still in their books. Ben House, 13 goals last season. Decent season for him. There's a lot of hype around Ethan Horhan at the moment. I've definitely butchered that name, but since he's come into the club, has been a very solid holding, deep line playmaker for them. Danny Mandroya as well in behind the striker, had a decent season last season. So yeah, for me personally, I think Lincoln are capable of a lot more than that. I'm very surprised that they are that low down. And one club that the bookies have got way off, in my opinion, is Fleetwood Town, who they've got in 18th on the same odds. Of course, as I said, there's a lot of clubs that are on 50-1 odds. But yeah, I am really inspired by the project that is going on at the Cods right now. And obviously Scott Brown signing a new contract until 2025, I do believe, only cements that. And the recruitment that they've done so far has really been impressive and adds to the players that they've already got and the quality that they have at this level already. I mean, for starters, in the middle of the park, Ryan Broom and Danny Mayer. Broom obviously being that more creative midfielder, and Danny Mayer has just got promoted with Plymouth last season. You know, he's a decent holding midfielder that they can have in their side. And also Adam Montgomery as well, coming over from Celtic, that Scott Brown Celtic connection coming in wonders there. And Montgomery is very highly rated, and I think that they've got a pretty decent talent on their books there. Other players they've got, I mean, obviously they've lost Carlos Mendes Gomez, 8 goals and 2 assists last season. That's going to be a bit of a hole to fill, but I think Broom and Mayer will certainly cover that. And they of course add to the likes of Josh Vela, Brendan Wirrad, who was brilliant last year, Scott Robertson, Phoenix Patterson. There's a lot of hype surrounding him. And then their front two, Jack Marriott and Jayden Stockley. Marriott had a fantastic impact in the second half of the season, and Stockley, while last season on the whole didn't really work out for him, we know what he can do at this level. And those two, with Promise Omashire as well, was cover, could be a pretty dangerous partnership. And honestly, I think Fleetwood are capable of improving their position from last season. I really am inspired by the project that they are building right now. One team that I was quite surprised to see quite high up in Sky Bet's estimations is Carlisle United. They're in 17th according to Sky Bet's odds to win the league. They tend to really underestimate League Two clubs, but I'm quite surprised that they have got a team this high up, particularly Carlisle as well. Of course, they come up via the playoffs, which again, if you were to predict them to go down, you would say it's quite a lazy prediction for a League Two side to go down. But it's very clear that with Paul Simpson's side, work needs to be done, particularly in the attacking line. I mean, for starters, Christian Dennis, their leading goal scorer by a country mile, 21 goals and 4 assists last season. They've obviously lost him back to League Two to Tranmere. Omari Patrick as well, a more technically gifted winger and attacker for their side. He's obviously left the club upon the expiration of his contract. The only strikers currently available at the club are Joe Garner and Ryan Edmondson. And Garner obviously offers that experience option, obviously an abundance of experience, but probably well past his peak now. And Ryan Edmondson, who got 6 goals at League Two level last season, which is okay. I have question marks as to whether he can do it at League One level. Another noticeable departure is Morgan Feeney, who I forgot to mention has signed for Shrewsbury. That is a decent signing for Shrewsbury, by the way, but a massive loss for Carlisle, a really influential figure in both boxes. But they have replaced him with Ben Barkley from Stockport and Sam Lavelle from Charlton. As a Charlton fan, Sam Lavelle really struggled with injuries at his time with us, but I think in the 2021-22 season, in the games that he did play, he proved that he can be a decent defender at this level. So if Carlisle can keep him fit, I think he could prove to be a solid replacement for Feeney. Owen Moxon, who I want to keep a keen eye on this season, 6 goals and 17 assists at League Two level. A really, really big creative player for them. Fully expect them to be fighting relegation. I think they will be down there this season. But if they can add a few attacking options, they could very well stay up this year. And then the final team coming in at 50 to 1 odds in 16th place, we have Cambridge United. Cambridge are the team that I am mostly concerned about. Sam Smith and Joe Ironside both gone. They are 2 massive losses in the attack. And it's not just there either. Lloyd Jones in the defensive line picked up a clean sweep of their Player of the Year awards, was absolutely superb in both boxes, very aerially dominant defender. He's gone as well. And you look at their attacking options going into this season. Fajiria Kenabiri hasn't really done it since he left Doncaster. Psycho Jene struggled to settle in at this level. And their latest addition, Gazana Hadme, who again, while he's got youth on his side, he's been a bit of a journeyman, you know, joining the likes of Burton on loan, Portsmouth, Ipswich as well. And he's really struggled to find consistency and find goals regularly. So I have question marks as to whether he is the one to replace Smith and replace Ironside and the goals that they scored. They have got some decent players. I think some decent experience in the defensive line. Danny Andrew, I think, is a good signing. Has proved to be a very solid left back at this level, particularly a free kick specialist, superb free kick on him. Some decent experienced League One defenders as well in Michael Morrison and Ryan Bennett, very experienced options there. Paul Digby's a solid holding midfielder. Conor McGrandles is another one. He's another departure I forgot to mention. Obviously was on loan from Charlton and was really influential in the middle of the park and really helped them stay up. He's gone as well. So they've lost a lot of key figures. I've not been inspired too much by their transfer activity. You know, I think Danny Andrew is a good signing, but besides that, I think they really need to strengthen their team. Otherwise, in my opinion, they could really struggle this season. In 15th place, we come to Wigan Athletic, who, in my opinion, are going to be the hardest team to predict this season, purely because, as we all know, they begin the season on -8 points. I still can't get over the situation Wigan find themselves in, man. Like, coming into a new ownership after the ownership that they previously had, which seemed to be on top of the world. You know, they won the league and then they find themselves in near administration and near liquidation because they failed to pay the staff 5 times over the course of a season. But the thing with Wigan, if you look at the squad that they have and the names that they have, it is a team that, in my opinion, is worthy of promotion. I mean, just naming some of the players in their team. Ben Amos, solid League One goalkeeper. Jack Watmow, arguably one of the best centre-backs, if not the best centre-back in this league, but he is subject to interest at the moment. I'd imagine he'll leave, among with a number of players that have already left the club. Jason Kerr, Curtis Tilt, decent defenders at this level. James McLean, I think, will be unbelievable at this level. Fiello Asgard and Callum Lang, 2 players that will probably have a bit of a redemption season if they stay. And then the 4 strikers that they have: Will Keane, Charlie Wyke, Stephen Humphreys and Josh McGuinness. That is a stupid striker combination at this level. Really, really good attacking options. And then their transfer business as well. Liam Morrison coming over from Bayern Munich. There's a lot of hype surrounding him. Sean Clare coming over from his release from Charlton. I still don't know why we released him. I think he's going to offer a lot of versatility for Wigan, and with the number that they've given him, obviously they're giving him the number 7. I'm excited to see how they utilise him. It seems like they're going to play him as a more advanced role. Callum McManaman, I think, will just be a body to have behind the scenes. He's not played much football recently. Johnny Smith, a versatile central midfielder stroke winger coming over from Burton Albion, and Matt Smith as well following his release from Arsenal. So Wigan have got a very solid squad at this level. I do expect a couple of names though from the team that I've just mentioned to leave due to the club's ongoing circumstances. No, they've obviously just come out of the poor ownership, but they're going to be a very difficult side to predict this season. Under the guidance of Sean Maloney, I would probably say the best they're going to get this season is mid-table. I don't think they'll go down. I think they'll make up the -8 points if they keep the squad that they've got. And Port Vale are a side that surprises me in the fact they're this high up in bookies' estimations, because a lot has changed based off the end of last season going into this one. Of course, Darryl Clark no longer at the club, and they've replaced him with Aaron Crosby, I believe that's his name. I know his name's Crosby, I don't know his first name. But yeah, I'm not massively convinced by Crosby and the appointment, and their signings so far, they have been fairly busy, to be fair, but it's been a bit of a squad overhaul at the moment. Connor Ripley, great signing. I think they've done really well to get him over the line from Morecambe. Was certainly one of the more busier goalkeepers due to Morecambe's leaky defence, but Ripley really established himself as one of the best goalkeepers in this league. Ethan Chislett, I think, is a good signing from AFC Wimbledon, 9 goals and 3 assists last season. Jason Lowe and Connor Grant offering some experience in the middle of the park. I like the Connor Grant signing as well. He's done well for Plymouth over the last few years, scored some outrageous goals at this level. Some other players they've got in their side: Ellis Harrison, their top goal scorer, 11 goals last season. Nathan Smith had a great season at the back, but I don't know, man. It's just the managerial change, the overhaul of the squad. Crosby, I'm not entirely sold on him just yet, and I must admit, I think 14th is quite an overestimation. I would say Port Vale will probably have a similar season, in my opinion, to the one they've just had last year. And then in 13th place, closing off the bottom half of the table, we have the 4th and final newly promoted side, that being Leyton Orient. And personally, at this point in time, I do have to agree. I think that it could be a very exciting season for the O's going into this season, under the guidance of Richie Wellens, who, of course, is experienced at this level from his time at Swindon and Doncaster. Obviously, we'll struggle sometimes at this level, but he's done a really, really good job with Orient to get them to this level. Notable departures for them this season: Lawrence Vigouroux and Paul Smith. Paul Smith, their top goal scorer, 10 goals, decent winger at League 2 level, and was a very solid servant. And of course, Lawrence Vigouroux, that is going to be a massive loss and very hard to replace in the in between the sticks, the influence that he's had with them over the last few seasons. But the signings they have made have actually been pretty decent. They've replaced Paul Smith with Dan Adjie, which is a fantastic signing in my opinion. Did really well at Crewe, 16 goals last season, can play out wide and through the middle. Getting Idris El Mazouni back on loan from Ipswich is a fantastic signing. He was brilliant as the deep lying midfielder, and also can play for them. He can play anywhere, sort of anywhere in the middle, and was very, very solid in the middle of the park. And the fact they've got him back is pretty decent. They've got some solid League One experience in Omar Beckles and Darren Pratley. I'm really excited to see Darren Pratley back in League One. Obviously, we play Charlton play Orient on the opening day. Really excited to see him play this season. George Moncur, 9 goals, 3 assists last season. Theo Archibald, 5 goals, 6 assists last season from out wide. Soteriou, I've 100% butchered that, I apologise. The Cyprus striker stroke winger, he got 9 goals last season. They've still got him. So yeah, I think Orient, they're building something decent going into this season. I don't think they'll go down. I think they will stay up, and I think they have definitely, in my opinion, got the potential to replicate what many League 2 teams have done in the past, and that is come up and shoot themselves into mid-table. Moving into the top half of the table, coming in 12th place at 33 to 1 odds, we have Exeter City, who obviously were the surprise, I think one of the surprise packages last season, of course, coming up from League 2 and finishing in 14th for the first time of asking. Obviously, second season syndrome now. I have to say they have been raided this transfer window. They have lost quite a lot of their key personnel. Giovanni Brown going to Bristol Rovers. I believe he left the club upon the expiration of his contract anyway. Archie Collins leaving to Peterborough. That's a big loss in the middle of the park. Jack Sparks. Josh Key going to Swansea. That's a big loss as well in the fullback position. Jay Stansfield returning to Fulham. He had a fantastic season on loan last season. And their leading marksman this season, Sam Nombe, is attracting interest from a number of clubs. So they have lost already a number of goals that they scored last season in the form of Giovanni Brown and Jay Stansfield going. If they lose Nombe as well, that's 40 goals in all competitions that they've lost from their side, which is absolutely, well, it'd be catastrophic if they lost all of them. And in terms of their signings so far, they've signed mostly players from non-league and some sort of like not really heavy-hitting signings. Vincent Harper from Eastleigh, there's supposed to be a bit of hype surrounding him as a attacking wing-back who can obviously cover the likes of Dimitri Mitchell, who was brilliant last season when he came to the club. Reece Cole coming in from Hayes and Yedding, I think he's a midfielder, and Jack Aitchison coming over from Motherwell, has had previous experience in England with Barnsley and Forest Green at this level, can play I think as the number 10 and also through the middle as the striker. So their signings, I don't know, that it's obviously gambles as to whether they're going to develop and whether they're going to improve. I just think that the level of players that they've lost and the signings they've made, that makes me think that 12th at the moment is a bit of an overestimation. And then on the same odds as Exeter, in 11th, we have Bristol Rovers. Finishing 17th last season, 73 goals conceded, 21 defeats. It really was a disappointing, underwhelming, inconsistent season for the Gas, but again, like a number of the clubs this season, their transfer activity has been really decent and really inspiring. James Wilson coming in from Plymouth was a key part of their defensive line that won the league last season, so a very solid player. Luke Thomas coming in on a permanent transfer, of course, spent their League 2 season when they got promoted on loan at the club, so that's a familiar face for them. Giovanni Brown coming in as a very solid option from a footballing perspective. We know he can score goals, but everything else surrounding him is, of course, very controversial. And George Friend coming in as well as an experienced fullback, has played most of his career in the Championship. I think that is a very solid addition to the side. Adding to the players they've already got, Aaron Collins, if they keep hold of him next season, that is absolutely massive. 16 goals and 11 assists last season, one of the more prolific attackers last season. John Marquis and Scott Sinclair as experienced options who both were pretty decent last season. James Connolly at the back, Anthony Evans in midfield, Luke McCormick as well through midfield. Rovers have got some decent players, and I think personally, under Joey Barton, who is very experienced at this level, as we all know, I think they can push on next season. I think that they can improve upon their 17th position, which, as I said, was a massive underachievement. In 10th place, at 25 to 1 odds to win the league, we do have Wycombe Wanderers, who are going to be one of the more interesting teams to watch this season, as they are in a bit of a rebuild phase. It is their first proper season, of course, without Gareth Ainsworth, who over the years has done a fantastic job with the Chairboys. Matt Bloomfield is his replacement, who at the moment I'm not massively convinced by, but obviously this is the summer where he gets the chance to build his own squad, which is very aging, and it is getting on a bit now. You know, Gareth McCleary, 7 goals and 8 assists, he's still got it. You know, he's one of the many few that have still got it, but like I said, the team isn't getting any younger. Lewis Wing, their star man last season through the middle, has left the club upon the expiration of his contract, and I very much doubt they'll be able to get him back. Their signings so far, Richard Keogh, while he offers a lot of experience, I think is well past his prime and obviously does nothing to improve the average age of the squad. Cian Breckin, though, from Manchester City, I think is a very exciting signing. He did really well in the Premier League Development 1 last season, getting 8 goals and 4 assists at academy level. And of course, Luke Leahy coming in as well from Shrewsbury. While again, at the age of 30, it doesn't improve the average age of the squad, but it is a very solid little pickup. He is, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, attacking fullbacks slash wingbacks in the entire league. I do genuinely hold that opinion. So Wycombe, I think there's a lot of work to do, and there is a lot of uncertainty surrounding the team. As I said, they've got an ageing squad and an inexperienced manager. Their transfers so far, there's a couple decent ones, but I think they do need to work a lot. And at this point in time, I would probably say 10th is an accurate estimation. Oxford United, who the bookies have at 18 to 1 odds in 9th place, who again are going through a bit of a rebuild phase, just like Wycombe. Obviously, Liam Manning. Ruben Rodriguez, one of the more exciting signings in the league this season, obviously was brilliant for Notts County in the National League, 19 goals. Is he going to do it at League 1 level? That is the question. Mark Harris coming in from Cardiff. He's only getting better with the amount of appearances that he's making, the more appearances that he makes and the goals that he scores. This is, again, an exciting player to have, and I think that the attack is something that Oxford really lacked last season, and I think they've got that now with Rodriguez and Harris. Josh McEachran coming in from midfield, a decent experienced midfielder. Jordan Fornelly, a familiar player to the club, coming back from Blackpool, returning to the club, a decent defender to have. And then some Premier League exciting prospects, Finn Stevens and James Beadle. Cameron Brannigan, the fact that he's still there is ridiculous. The guy is brilliant at this level, and Oxford have done really well at this point in time to keep hold of him. I don't think they're going to shoot up as high as the bookies have got them at the moment. They could still make a few more adjustments to their squad and add a few more bodies, but yeah, they're going to be an interesting team to watch this season for sure, as to whether Manning's rebuild is going to work. And then in 8th place, we come to my side, Charlton Athletic. The bookies have us at 16 to 1 odds to win the league, and at this point in time, I do have to agree. I think, like last season, there is a lot of ambiguity and a lot of uncertainty surrounding us. You know, effectively a new system. You know, Dean Holden coming in, he's done a fantastic job since joining the club. Personally, I think he's really done well, especially last year with the hand that he was dealt. I think that we looked dead and buried when he did join us, and he managed to get us to a 10th place finish with a very average team. Our transfer business so far has been very decent, in my opinion. Harry Iceland coming over from Luton, obviously was in red-hot form in the second half of the season with Barnsley. Lloyd Jones is a smart pickup. I think he improves the defensive line. Obviously was brilliant in a struggling Cambridge side. And then, of course, Alfie May, the big one we have to talk about. I think that he is a real statement of intent. Miles Leaburn, who of course is injured for the start of the season, but if we can keep hold of him and continue to develop him, I think he's only going to get stronger. And then you've got Lucas Ness as well in the defensive line. Michael Hector, under a full pre-season under his belt, could be dangerous at this level. Mandela Egbo, if he can stay fit. George Dobson. Are we going to be able to replace the goals that Raksaki scored last season? That is a massive loss, of course, out wide, and his creativity and his technicality that he had last season. It's a massive hole to fill. And then other question marks. Are Scott Fraser and Corey Blackett-Taylor going to have consistency this season? Are Charlie Kirk and Conor McGrandles going to come good for us? We would expect us to be challenging for promotion this season, but at this point in time, I don't think we've got the squad to challenge for top 6, but that could all change. You never know. And then just missing out on the playoffs in 7th place at 12-1 odds, we have the second newly relegated side in Reading. And I'm being honest with you, I'm quite surprised they're this high because the club is in tatters. It's in absolute tatters at the moment. I mean, they brought in Ruben Sellés as their new manager. Inexperienced as a manager, let's be honest. I mean, he had a pretty torrid time at Southampton, and that is the only spell he's had as a League One manager. A number of players have left the club, and they don't, I mean, realistically, they don't have a team at the moment. Most of their squad going into this season is going to be made up of their youth academy players, so which, to be fair, Reading have just recently achieved Category 1 status, so they have got a decent academy, but it's whether those academy players are going to be able to mount a promotion challenge, which I would imagine probably won't be the case. I mean, looking at the players they currently have on their books, Nesta Guinness-Walker, I think is decent at this level. Andy Yadam, if they keep hold of him. Sam Hutchinson, an experienced defender. Ove Ajaria, who most likely will leave. He hasn't played for the club for a number of months now. I don't know what's happened to him. Mamadi Kamara, I think, is one of their more exciting prospects. And then, of course, Andy Carroll. If they do keep hold of him, that'll be a very exciting striker to watch. And, of course, they are set to sign Theo Walcott, which will be a ridiculous signing and one of the more exciting players to look at this level. Although, to be fair, at the moment, it is stalling a little bit. We haven't heard much updates apart from when the news broke last week. So Reading, at this moment in time, I think would be very lucky to be anywhere near the playoffs. Into the playoffs in 6th place, we do have the third and final newly relegated side in Blackpool, who the bookies have at 11-1 odds. These guys, again, are going to be an interesting team to watch this season. Of course, back under the guidance of Neil Critchley, who knows what he's doing at this level. Obviously, got them promoted in their last stint in League One. They've lost some key players, in my opinion. Jordan Fornelly, Curtis Nelson, Reece James, and of course the big one, Jerry Yates. I think it was going to be very difficult for them to keep hold of him. I would have been very surprised if he did stay at this level. And it's going to be very tough, in my opinion, to replace the goals that he's scored over the years, the influence that he's had up front. Their transfer business so far has been fairly decent. Albie Morgan, I would hold off judgment on so far. He showed a lot of inconsistency at his time at Charlton, but if he can settle in well at the Seasiders, then maybe he could turn into the player that Charlton all thought that he would. Matthew Pennington is a great signing coming over from Shrewsbury, a really solid defender at this level. Oliver Norburn as well from Peterborough, solid experienced option. Carl Joseph, of course, joins Blackpool as part of a swap deal from Swansea, with Jerry Yates going the other way. And I think Joseph could be a decent signing. He did well at Oxford. And they have got some decent League One players, in my opinion. Marvin Ekpateta at centre-back, Jordan Lawrence-Gabriel, Kenny Dougal, CJ Hamilton and Owen Dale are two very solid wingers that I do like the look of. Two pacey, technical wingers that I think can definitely do a job at this level. So Blackpool, yeah, I think they should be competing for top 6 this season. In 5th place, we then come to John Massinio's Portsmouth, who the bookies have at 10-1 odds. This is going to be a very big season for Pompey this year. It just has to be their year. They've spent way too long at this level. Inconsistency has hindered them, especially last season. They were a very tough side to beat with 10 defeats, but 19 draws, obviously equating to 17 wins, if you can do the maths after that. So very, very inconsistent season last year, and a bit of a rebuild phase, of which obviously John Massinio is still very much an inexperienced manager, and he has got to build the team that he wants. And they've obviously been the busiest in the transfer window so far, and some of their signings have been very excited. I mean, Anthony Scully coming over from Wigan and Regan Paul from Lincoln, they're definitely the best of the bunch and very, very solid players at this level. They've also brought in some League One experience, Connor Shaughnessy from Burton and Gavin White coming over, obviously a player that Massinio knows very, very well. There's some exciting players coming over from abroad as well, Kusini Yengi and Terry Devlin coming over from Australia and Northern Ireland respectively. And then the rest of the signings are players that are at the right age that they can develop. Christian Sadie on a permanent from Bournemouth, decent cover for Colby Bishop, who was outstanding last season, 22 goals. Ben Stevenson from Forest Green, Jack Sparks from Exeter. Will Norris coming in as a goalkeeping option from Peterborough, from Burnley. He was on loan at Peterborough and did a fairly good job there. Some of the other players they've got still in their books: Joe Morrell, Marlon Pack, Tom Lowry, Paddy Lane, very good midfield options there. Riley Towler, Zach Swanson and Connor Ogilvie in defence. They have got the tools, they've got a decent team, and their transfer business has been quite exciting. It's just whether all of these signings and whether John Mousinho is going to work out this season. Darren Ferguson's Peterborough United come in 4th place at 9-1 odds. It still makes me laugh that Ferguson's come back again to Peterborough after the number of stints he's had in the past. But yeah, Peterborough could be set for a difficult season this season, in my opinion, or certainly more difficult to the one that they just had. They've lost some key personnel and could be set to lose a fair few more. For starters, Jack Taylor and Joe Ward. They are two massive holes to fill. Taylor in the middle of the park and Joe Ward as a very decent wing-back at this level. Johnson Clark-Harris is up for sale as well. 27 goals last season. A ridiculous hole to fill if they do lose him. And the same with Ronnie Edwards. He could very well be off as well, as he's subject to Championship and Premier League interest at the moment. They have got some decent players in their books. Ephraim Mason-Clark had a great season last year. 10 goals and 7 assists. Their signings are players that they can develop, which is something that Peterborough tend to do really well. They're not the most, outlandish and, the brilliant signings, you could say, but they are players they can develop. Kabongo Semanga coming in on permanent from Chesterfield. He spent the second half of last season on loan at the club initially. Ryan de Havilland from Barnet, supposed to be a decent box-to-box midfielder. Archie Collins coming in from Exeter, I think is a very solid addition and could be, in the future, could prove to be a very solid replacement for Taylor. And Romano Critchlow coming in as a centre-back option from Huddersfield as well. So the signings they've made, I think they are players they can develop, but with the big players that they have lost and the players they could be set to lose, it could be more of a difficult season. And coming in on the same odds as Peterborough at 9-1 in 3rd place, just missing out on the automatic promotion spots, the bookies have gone with Barnsley, which doesn't really surprise me. Obviously missing out on promotion last season in the playoff final in heartbreaking fashion, losing in the final kick of extra time to Sheffield Wednesday. The thing with Barnsley is they've basically got the same team. They've already got the squad that is capable of challenging. The only problem is the managerial change. Michael Duff did a fantastic job last season, and I think that losing him could potentially hamper them. And obviously his replacement is Neil Collins, who is very inexperienced when it comes to a manager. Very young at 39, but has pretty much no experience where he has, well, not pretty much, he has no experience at English football whatsoever. His previous management was with the Tampa Bay Rowdies, who are a 2nd division side in the USA. So if that doesn't tell you how inexperienced he is, I don't know what will. But he's a young manager. It could work out, and he has got the toolkit. Obviously, Mads Anderson being the biggest loss of all of them, obviously going to Luton Town. That's a big hole to fill in the defensive line. But as I said, their team is mostly the same, and they have got some exciting players. Devante Cole, 16 goals last season. James Norwood, 12 goals last season. Then you've got Luca Connell in the midfield, very exciting player. Nicky Cadden, Herbie Kane, Adam Phillips, who was brilliant last season. Callum Styles, although I would imagine he probably would be off after having a loan spell at Millwall. So Barnsley, they have got the tools. They've got decent players. And then moving on into the automatic promotion spots, in 2nd place at 15-2 odds to win the league, the bookies have gone with Bolton Wanderers. Ian Evans' side, a very, very brilliant project over the last few seasons, and they've steadily been progressing over the years, back up from League 2 into the playoffs last season in 5th place, missing out on the playoff final to Barnsley. Their transfers so far, again, not exactly the heavy hitters, but they are players that they can develop, and some League 1 experience in there as well. Of course, James Trafford is a massive hole to fill in between the sticks. They've replaced him with Nathan Baxter and Joel Coleman, who have come across from Chelsea and Ipswich respectively, 2 goalkeepers that have got experience at this level. Josh Dacres Cogley coming in as a fullback option as Connor Bradley's replacement, who's also going to be a hole to fill. Daniel Ndulu is an interesting one, coming in as a striker cover. Obviously played 14 games for Bolton, scoring just 1 goal, but could be a solid cover. And Will Forrester as well, come off the back of a decent season with Port Vale, seems to be very highly rated. But realistically, the squad that they've got already and the manager they've got, obviously Ian Evatt, he's done an absolutely fantastic job at Bolton. And the team that they have got, Dion Charles, one of the best strikers in this league in my opinion, John Daddy Bodvarsson, Victor Adeboyejo, who I actually forgot that they had, fantastic striker, brilliant goal scorer with Burton in the first half of last season. And then in midfield, you've got Aaron Morley, Josh Sheehan out wide. You've got Randell Williams and Kieran Sadlier. Ricardo Santos, one of, if not the best centre-back at this level. They've got a very, very solid team and a fantastic project. And yeah, who's to say that Bolton can't not only challenge for top 2, but also for the title. But the bookies have gone with Paul Warne's Derby County as the outright favourites to win the league at 9-2 odds. And it doesn't surprise me whatsoever, because realistically, with the squad that they've got, the signings they've made, the recruitment that they've done, and the team that they have, if they don't win this league, it's absolutely criminal. I mean, just naming the signings they've made so far. Joe Ward from Peterborough, brilliant signing as an attacking wing-back. Josh Vickers as a solid goalkeeper cover for Joe Wildsmith and someone who can compete with him. Callum Elder from Hull, good signing. Curtis Nelson as an experienced defender at this level, very solid signing. Sonny Bradley from Luton, stupid signing at this level. I don't know how they've been able to bring him in, but it just goes to show how good Derby's recruitment is. Connor Washington, I think he'll offer hard work and some decent amount of pace, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to replace the goals that David McGoldrick left. Obviously, 24 goals from McGoldrick last season. He's left the club and gone to Notts County. And Kane Wilson as well, coming over from Bristol City. Obviously, really struggled in the Championship, struggled with injuries, but had a very solid time at Forest Green. I think he can very much do a job at League One level. Just looking at the rest of their team, James Collins, Nathaniel Mendez-Lang, Conor Hourihane, how he's still at League One level baffles me. Max Bird, Iran Cashin, one of the best centre-backs in the league last season. They have got an unbelievable team at this level. And if they don't win this league, it will shock me. So there you have it, guys. There are the Bookies League One predictions for the 2023-24 season. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, can you possibly leave a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and turn on those post notifications so you're notified of every time I upload a new video. What do you think of Sky Bet's predictions for the season? Let me know in the comments below. What are your predictions for the season? This has been Tyler Roninson. Have a nice day, and I will see you all in the next video. Take it easy, stay safe, and I'll see you all then.